The Movie Health Podcast is proudly supported by Telemoods by eClapper Project Inc. Telemoods recommends which movies and TV series to watch by matching the user's mood and real-time offer of all streaming platforms. Download Telemoods today.
Welcome to the Movie Health Podcast, where we talk about movies and mental health. I'm Catherine, and today I interview C. C currently works as a family practitioner through Flourish Community Solutions, involving complex crisis intervention, therapeutic engagement in the home directly with children, young people, and their carers, advocacy, education, networking with community and stakeholders, as well as documentation and report writing for the Department of Child Safety. Additionally, she offers free counselling at the Mulaney Neighbourhood Centre or via telehealth through Our True Health. At her private practice in Montville, she facilitates group-based therapy workshops based on her experience as a workshop leader and somatic therapist. Beginning her interest in human services from a young age, working with disabilities in her teen years, and continuing a specialised pathway into her mature aged years, filled with life experience as a bonus above all else. C has completed 8 years of tertiary studies. Welcome, C. It's such a pleasure to interview you today.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you.
So today you chose the movie Lost Daughter. I'll just do a quick intro of it, if that's okay. It's a film that was made in 2021. It was written and directed by Maggie Gyllenhaal, adapted from a book by Elena Ferranti, and it stars Olivia Colman, Jessie Buckley, Dakota Johnson, Ed Harris, Peter Sarsgaard, and Paul Mescal. This film, I didn't actually hear about it, but when I watched it on Netflix, I found it to be very evocative and emotionally affecting. Can you tell us why you picked it as your favorite film today?
Yeah, I feel like it. What I particularly liked about it is the strong character. In general, in movies, I like where it's not so much about what's happening in the movie, but you're just really developing a relationship with the character. That's my personal preference in movies, and that's the reason I chose it for this, is particularly in relation to my work, and I see a lot of the themes being played out in that movie that I see in relation to family dynamics.
But very interesting. And I know you have such unique and specialized experience. What themes would have stood out to you in this film?
So initially, the main thing that stood out for me was the way that inner child trauma impacts the way that people parent, and I guess it's a theme that we can all relate to on some level, and some of us are more conscious and some of us are less conscious, and that's where it and that shows how the level of impact it can have later on in our lives. That's the main theme, and then upon further reflection, I saw things like contrast and confusion, which is a theme that I see a lot in people, where they're always trying to make sense of it, sense of something. And in this movie, you're introduced with this character, and as a viewer, trying to make sense of who she is and what it is that is going on for her around borders, and that confusion sort of carries on throughout the movie. And I see that in people I work with, that there is that ongoing confusion that comes from that inner child way of thinking and the adult way of thinking, and then trying to blend those two ideas together, and they don't always make sense. And another theme I see is the dissociation, which, we know is such a common thing in mental health, and the way that it's played out in this movie is just with that main character, her disconnection to the impact that it's having on her I don't know how much to say so much in it right now about the actual movie, but just, the doll is like the central, is in a sense is a central theme, and her disconnection to having a full appreciation to the trauma that that's causing for the young girl in the movie, and also her when she's asked about things about her own children, she kind of just has a lot of spacing out, a lot of, oh, I don't remember, or and when she's asked about the doll, she kind of doesn't engage in those conversations. Yeah, so that dissociation is a common theme throughout the whole movie.
Yeah, I found the movie quite, it was confusing and very intriguing. Olivia Colman, who plays Leda, I think did such an excellent role. And would you say that she's your favorite character? Do you identify with her personally?
I don't identify with her personally. So I guess for her, she has what might be diagnosed as postnatal depression, and so therefore that disconnection with her daughter. And I grew up with a mum who was like that. I grew up with a mum that was disconnected from me. So I guess in that way that I connect with doing the opposite of what we grew up with. So the way that I've raised my children is the complete opposite. I've been always very like my maternal instincts are a huge part of my identity. So I guess it's more that I can relate to the way that we do the opposite. I probably more relate to the young woman in the like that the younger woman that she develops a relationship with, in that yeah when I was younger and with my children.
Do you mean the young Leda played by Jessie Buckley, or Nina, the mother who Leda meets at the resort?
Nina. Yeah.
Nina? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's really interesting because I've experienced abandonment myself, and I've experienced inner child therapy. So I've been the recipient of it, and it was actually it was very fascinating to watch this film and seeing the different perspectives of the different lead women in the film. I really identified with Nina as well. I'm curious what you thought about the younger portrayal of Leda. So played by Jessie Buckley, where it actually shows her initial experience of looking after her two daughters, Martha and Bianca.
Yeah. I think there's a scene where she's half asleep on the floor, and the girl's playing with her hair, and she just and the other girl in the other room is crying. And I do remember that. I remember when my kids were little and I was tired, and it's just that loneliness and that fatigue and all of that comes with that. But then there's that the other side of her character, who is that really academic, and then she comes alive, and that's where she feels connected. And so I guess what I see a lot in the families that I work with is that the ones who are struggling the most are the ones who don't find community, don't find other mums to have have that whinge about how difficult it is, or the sleep time, or the food, or whatever. And it's that that who choose to not connect with other mums. And so I see that in her young character, is that she because of her not having other women in her, we don't know the full story. It appears that she doesn't have other women and other young mums in her world, and it's very much just in the home. It's not sort of out.
Yeah, I think it's still such a taboo subject. I don't know if you would agree with it, but postnatal depression is still something that's not really talked about, and in a way, people
Mm.
feel ashamed. I haven't worked with people who've experienced it, but I do know people personally who really struggle with it. And obviously, you're finding a community, like you're saying, and a network of other mothers who can talk about these things, and it's an unshamed conversation. I think is so important. And I guess in a way, this film maybe broke the mold in the way that it's portrayed women and mothers in a very different way to other films about women. Um, what did you think about the other characters in the film and how they might have like contributed to the story, the storytelling?
I I found the men in the movie were like it was actually a really positive representation of men, which I thought
Mm,
was something definitely to celebrate because there's that very stereotype of, well, that she was, in other movies, it may be that she was isolated because she didn't have a supportive husband or whatever, but she
mhm,
did. She had what appeared to be a really beautiful man in her life. And then the men later, in if you go onto the island, like in the scenes where she's on the island, there's
mhm,
also a really beautiful portrayal of men there that I feel like it's almost that she's more used to connecting with men in a sensual way, but
mm.
they kind of, they don't, men are not taking advantage of her. And there's just quite, I like how
Mhm.
that just sort of, the men sort of just hold the space in that movie, like hold the
Yeah.
space for this woman to be in these different emotions and thoughts and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I agree. Ed Harris's character Lyle, I think he had really great interactions with Leda. It was
Yeah.
quite like playful and, like you said, sensual. And there was something empowering and different about her relationship with I guess all the men in the film. I'm really curious about your idea of the whole character of the doll. So I think the doll's name was Nenny, and Elena, who is her. All these names are so kind of similar, but
Yeah.
Elena's the daughter of Nina.
Yeah.
And I guess, when Leda watches these two together, it kind of takes her back to her past.
Yeah.
What do you have to say about the doll as a character?
Yeah. Okay. So the doll, I I may be wrong in this, but I'm pretty sure that she mentions that. So there's the doll that she had her from with her own children, and
Hmm.
she called it Mina Mama, and I'm pretty sure she
Yeah.
said that it was a gift from her own mum. So
Mm,
to me, the doll represents her longing for her own mum, like
yeah.
so Leader's mum, and it's just like this ongoing search for this doll. Like it's this, so there's this, um, it's just throughout the whole movie, there's this searching for something that is hiding, and it even hides in her own unit. Like it, she'll be like, "Oh, where is it? Where is it?" Even though that she's the one that's hidden it, and it's that childlike game that there's this confusion around. And then the doll is wet, like, so
Mm,
water is definitely a thing that's used in the movie as well, like where in the beginning leader you see the way, like the waves, and that's the emotion. And so this doll is connected with the emotion and the womb. And we talk about
mm,
the elements of water is very much that womb, the mother figure. and and then at the end, when she returns the doll to Nina, like, because as a viewer we're waiting like for her to give this doll back. Come on, just give it back or whatever. And then it's such an anticlimax at the end where she just hands it over as if it was nothing, and then she
mm,
just has that very strong. She's like, "Oh, I was just playing. As if it just didn't mean anything." Yeah. So I think
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
what
I think sorry. Yeah.
no, I was going to ask what what are your thoughts around the doll? Like what?
Mhm. Yeah, I think the whole movie is such an enigma. And of course, later being the protagonist, we're not quite sure yet what her intentions are, what's behind that. And it's only near the end that we discover that I guess she experienced trauma from her own mother, but it doesn't go into detail. So we don't see any elaboration of that. We don't understand. So it really could have been that, she was abused or neglected, or it could have been anything. But when she refuses her children to go to her mother's when her husband suggests it, before she leaves them. Don't want to put any spoilers, but I think it's inevitable. But
Yeah,
anyway, yeah, I think the doll is so powerful. I agree
yeah,
with you. The fact that the little girl gets lost and then the doll gets lost, but actually we as the audience are very aware that actually it's not lost; it's just taken by Leda. And
yeah,
she's looking after it. She's, obviously just hiding it from everyone. And yeah, I found the end very very strange, like how she just handed it over, like you said, like very blasé. And we're not sure what she expected the reaction of Nina to be, the mother. But I think that was like the turning point where I guess she realized that she ruptured a relationship that she actually really cared about, because she actually really enjoyed the company of Nina. Like they had something, something going on between them as well. I don't know. It was some
yeah,
kind of, I don't know, maternal attraction. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how you would
yeah.
describe it, but yeah.
Yeah. There's definitely the relationship between the two women, because they were almost like, because again that sensuality comes in, where
Mm,
she's looking at Nina in that and admiring her beauty, and vice versa.
mm,
Nina admires Leader's beauty, and just that,
yeah.
you just find that touch of the scarf or something, I can't remember, but there was,
Hmm.
in that admiring her as the wise woman and the intellectual, the emotion. There was a curiosity, admiration. Curiosity is
Yes.
probably the the main thing, if I was to
Hmm.
put a word to it, that's
Yeah.
been played out in them.
That's
Yeah,
very true. I think that's the perfect word. Yeah. And with Leda and Nina being kind of the central characters, there was also Callie. So I think Nina's sister-in-law, if I'm right.
yeah.
I'm wondering what you thought of her as an addition to the female leads, and what kind of dynamic she created in the story.
Yeah, I think what I think is, what happens in a lot of movies is that, sometimes you might have five women playing five different parts of personalities that we can all relate to. As a woman, we relate
Yeah.
to all five of them. And I think for her, that character, she was the in between. There was
Mm.
also that mystery, like, because we don't know. She was an older woman that was pregnant. We don't know if she has had a lost child in there somewhere, because of the little sort
Mm.
of comments that were made around that. But she's a strong woman, and she's almost a bit like that annoying mother-in-law, and she's sort of a bit of she's the
Mm.
caring sister, but even though she's not the mother-in-law, she has that protective, and but there's nothing to dislike about her, but there is,
Yeah.
yeah, just sort of a neutral in between that. Yeah,
Mm.
there isn't
Yeah.
anything really that stands out for me apart from that.
Hmm.
I'm curious
I think it's
if
so
there's,
relevant. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I think it's so relevant what you said about how like the three main women kind of represent different parts of being a woman. So it's like we can identify with all of them. I think that's very powerful. Were there particular scenes that stood out to you that you wanted to speak to today?
to the beginning of. introducing Lita's character, the that she enters in that she's driving. You can see that she's in that space of freedom, and that she's away from everything. And what the first words that we kind of how she introduces herself, I'm a professor. And it's that very clear thing. And then there's those books, there's these heavy books that are being carried up. And that very much introduces her character, the identity that she feels strong about. But then at the end, the books in that suitcase are being thrown down. Like, so it's literally that strong character, that academic character is just also what weighs her down. Like you see in that these books are just thrown down, and and it's after her final kind of words are, I'm an unnatural mother. And so those two, those two parts of her personality, the beginning and the ending, and I thought that was quite well that it was done. And again, with the water being at the beginning and the end of when she just lays by the water in her overwhelm. To me that and then there's that all blur in the middle of everything. I think it's just so well done with that.
Yeah, I agree. It was Maggie Gyllenhaal's first film that she directed, and I think she did such a masterful job. There is a lot of symbolism, like you said, with the water. And I was actually just going to ask you, is there standout dialogue? And you mentioned I'm an unnatural mother, and also the line, "Children are a crushing responsibility." I think that speaks volumes.
Yes. Yeah. Because just prior to her saying the crushing responsibility, she was hit with the pine cone. And that's where, like, again, so we have the water as thing, we have the air, but right before that, you just hit this big drop on her back. We don't know exactly what happened initially. And then it's that she was hit with a pine cone, and straight after comes those words, the crushing responsibility. And so I just see like that pain in your back kind of thing. And
yes,
yeah,
the burden of it all.
Yes,
I didn't realize the fact
cone.
that it happened after. Yeah, I actually I didn't realize that. That's so true.
It was
more symbolism.
Yeah. And again, it's because of when I watched it that second time, I was like, oh yeah. I hadn't, I didn't pick up on it the first time either.
Yeah, I'll need to watch it again. Definitely.
Yeah.
Very complex film and enigmatic. So I think so some people won't get it at all, and then I think a lot of people. I've been reading a lot of comments and even interviews with Maggie Gyllenhaal and the actors, saying how I guess a lot of people will identify it too with it as well, and kind of feel relieved that this is being portrayed as as a human experience, that women do feel this way but don't necessarily talk about it with others. But thank you for talking about The Lost Daughter with me. I'm really curious, with your extensive and unique experience, what would be your tips for mental health?
Okay, so definitely to realize that we're not alone in things that we feel alone in. That the more we allow the opening and accepting of our own vulnerabilities, the more we allow connection in our life. And it's not about going out and just doing like a vomit to everybody and not having boundaries about what's going on, but just to really allowing that voice to allow ourselves to hear our own voice. It doesn't even have to be that you have to tell everybody, but just to know in ourselves that that our wounds and all of that kind of thing, that they're so precious and that they have a place in the world.
That's very powerful. So like kind of radically accepting all parts of who we are, our shadow selves, our light, everything. And I guess,
Yeah.
with that, there's so many different modalities like parts work and whatnot. But I like how in the beginning of this podcast you mentioned like pretty much the integration of the inner child and our adult selves. And I
Yeah.
found that to be so powerful. Yeah, in inner child therapy, even just the act of like journaling, speaking to your inner child, like changing the inner dialogue. There's so many different activities that
Yeah.
come with that.
Yeah.
Would you recommend any in particular in the work that you do and what you've seen with your clients?
Oh, yeah, to just keep doing it, like keep that inner child alive, not just have it as a thing, oh well, I've already done that work kind of thing. I did that 10 years ago. To keep it alive all the time, like what does my inner child need right now, and do those inner child dates, or be playful. I can share with myself, like it's I have I have this mirror with all like these lights around it. So for me, my inner child is like literally like dressing that Barbie every day, choosing what
Mm,
jewelry I'm going to wear, and it's fun. And because then the rest of the day, I know I'm in that quite of a headspace and heart space where I'm giving, and so it's that's how I bring it into my everyday, and that playfulness. And yeah, to just really keep our inner child alive, um, and hear that voice and trust it.
mhm. Just going back to the film, do you think that Leda kept her inner child alive?
No, no, like I
Mm,
mean that that's where the resistance is in
mm,
her being able to integrate, not recognizing. Yeah, I think a leader what is alive in leader is the academic and the
mm,
professor. That's the role that she's most comfortable in, and yeah, the inner child is
mm.
blocked.
She's suppressed in a way, isn't she?
Yeah,
That actually takes me back to another line in the film that I wrote down, my messy notes here. Um, But so it was a line that was mentioned by I think Peter Skarsgård, who was another professor who was very attracted to Leda when she was younger, and then they had the affair. And it's interesting that you say that her identity was primarily as the professor, and in a way, I guess she felt desired for her work as well, because he was saying
mm,
in the lecture that he was turned on or something by her words or something. And then I think
yeah,
she quoted something from Simone Weil, whenever one tries to suppress doubt, there is tyranny. And I
yeah,
think that line on its own kind of like summarizes the film as well,
yeah,
where it,
yeah,
in many, many ways. And I like how you said that basically the whole reason why Leda was the way she was is because she did suppress her inner child. She wasn't actually allowing her to flourish,
yeah,
or to integrate it every day. She was um, she was tyrannized by that
yeah,
suppression.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Um, I'm really interested in your work. If you want to talk a little bit about what you do.
yeah. Okay. So I well, so I do different things on different days. Uh, so the family practitioner work, how that works is there'll be a family that, for whatever reason, will been referred through the Department of Child Safety.
Mhm,
So I will come in and assess uh, how to best support this family in a hands-on. And it might
mhm,
be that the children are living with a carer, a grandparent, or a parent. And then it might be to, okay, what needs to happen for these children to be able to stay at home? Because ultimately, the we the values and beliefs are that children are best in the home. But how do we support this family for that to happen?
mhm,
and it often is then to seek out external supports for that family, and so that they're not isolated and doing things on their own, because it just doesn't function when people are trying to do everything on their own. So that's one aspect. And then there'll be more sort of trauma-informed practices and providing education and support for the adults to understand their children from a trauma-informed perspective, and it's not that the children are just behaving badly or doing whatever, and to reframe those their insight and their and give new tools into that. So that I could probably talk for hours about that. The sort of tools and stuff. But so that's one aspect of my work. Another thing I do is counselling. So, quite the traditional, it's not traditional because it's not textbook, but, what we sort of associate with sitting just one-on-one with a person in that sort of 50-minute kind of time frame, and just people sharing what it is that they want to share, and facilitating and holding space for that person so that essentially that we feel heard and understood and acknowledged and celebrated for who we are.
Yeah.
Then the workshops I've done previously. I used to do dance workshops as a dance therapist, and then as my body changed through surgeries and age and so forth, I less focused on the actual dancing as such, but still integrate the somatic therapies because I love the whole body experience. So in sessions, I might do meditation with people, or like a guided visual journey, or I'll do some drawing, mandala. And it might be that people might just be physically playing with something while they're talking, and then we will sort of reflect back on, what does, you chose these colors here, or these patterns here, or these shapes, and just sort of talk about that, what that means for that person, and it really is such a powerful tool to, rather than just talking, because often when we're talking, we just can go into monologue and just our story that we repeated so many times. And so when there are these external things, it just allows us to have more of an embodied experience of our story, rather than it just be blah, blah, blah. And then I also do telehealth, which is, a different experience, because, it being on the online society, we have learned how to still be present without actually physically being together, just like you and I are right now. And, I have to sort of find ways to create that space in a very different way than what, when I'm with somebody in person, the whole making a cup of tea for them, having nice smells around, having a comfortable couch, all part of the experience. Whereas with telehealth, there isn't that. So you have to create that space in a different way.
That's very true. I loved your points. And I think essentially we're also saying, how important it is to hold space for the inner child. You on a day-to-day basis work with children and families. And I think, I'm sure how important it is to have that compassion and not judgment, but compassion. And I really how you do somatic and expressive therapies. I think that I honestly believe that's the way of the future. The fact that it's more kinesthetic and sensory, and embodied therapy is, I guess that's why children are so sensory, because they actually understand the stand, like, getting down in the sandbox and just really like using their hands, using their whole body. It's like that's natural for them. And
Yeah,
I think,
yeah.
it's so powerful for adults to engage in that sort of thing as well. Was there anything else that you wanted to mention in today's episode?
I feel like it's been really I've really enjoyed just the flowing conversation, and it's been so nice, and I I find it so inspiring with and I'm so so new to learning in this whole thing around movie therapy, and
Mhm.
I would love to know more about that. I shared with you just when we were sharing emails, just how I even came across um,
Mm.
the work that you're doing, and that was through because a client of mine who watches a lot of movies and relates a lot to movies, and
Mm.
who and so I just find it so fascinating that that's even a thing, that movie therapy is a thing. Like I just I'm so I'm excited about it, and I look forward to learning more about it. So that's yeah, I I hadn't I've always loved movies, and I've always loved people, and just
Mhm.
and therapy, and to put those two things together is just a whole new world, and I really look forward to learning more about that. So thank you for doing what you do. I love when people follow their passion, because the more we follow our own passion, it invites other people to learn. And so thank you for doing what you do, because I wouldn't have known about this if you weren't doing what you were doing, and I really find it inspiring.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I really believe that movies are mirrors to our lives. And, characters in movies serve us as role models, or at least, shows us parts of ourselves that maybe we don't dare to look at. Like in The Lost Order with the three women, I think, many women can identify with different parts of those three characters. And I really enjoyed speaking with you today. So thank you so much for the opportunity, See. And yeah, we will definitely talk more about film therapy together.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
The Movie Health Podcast is proudly supported by Telemoods by eClapper Project Inc. Telemoods recommends which movies and TV series to watch by matching the user's mood and real-time offer of all streaming platforms. Download Telemoods today.